I recently bought a new phone. And now might seem like a bit of a weird time to do this, so let's discuss. Samsung, please don't follow Apple. I know charging so much for your phones seems fun. Now, it's really difficult to not get excited about the uber sexy leaks around the Samsung Galaxy S10, especially with that punch out in the screen for the front-facing camera. It means that the front of the phone is basically entirely taken up by screen, and it really is beautiful. It's going to have a Snapdragon 855, which at this point doesn't mean anything because we don't have any performance figures, and there's even going to be a version which potentially is going to have 5G available, which is even faster mobile connectivity, but you're going to have to pay more for it. And that's where my issue with the S10 arises. The entry-level variant is now rumored to be starting at $850. But charging $850 is a scam, a scam. $850 for a phone is a lot of money. Yes, it's not $1,000 like the iPhone XS. Now, to put into perspective just how expensive the new Galaxy S10 is going to be, the iPhone XR or XR or whatever you want to call it is actually cheaper than the entry-level S10. Although you have to keep in mind that the S10 is going to be spec'd really well. It's going to have a 5.8-inch screen and 128 gigs of storage, which is a lot. And if you're interested in more details around the rumors of the up-and-coming phone, I'll leave a link in the description below for you to check out. Now that we've got the massive price hike on the S10 out of the way, enter the LG G7. Now, the LG G7 is the flagship LG phone from 2018 that didn't see much press, but it's one of those phones that all of the videos around it talk about how it's the most underrated phone of 2018. And it's got the kind of standard flagship specs, which I'll get into just now. But I got this phone from a reseller on Amazon, brand new, unlocked, for $460, which is almost half of what the entry-level variant of the S10 is going to cost. Now, you might be saying that, well, this is almost definitely the kind of baby loser version of the LG G7, but it really isn't. This is the highest spec'd version of the G7 for $460. Now, let's just quickly discuss the specs of this bad boy. CPU-wise, it's got a Snapdragon 845 CPU in it, which is the flagship 2018 cell phone CPU, has 6 gigs of RAM as opposed to 4 gigs of the entry-level one, and it's got 128 gigs of storage. Now, honestly, if you're using more than 128 gigs on your phone, what are you doing with your life? And if you are that kind of person, there is an SD card slot so you can expand it with even more storage. Now, it's got a really beautiful 6.1-inch screen, which has a resolution of 3120 by 1440. Now, this is important because it means that you can watch YouTube videos on a higher than HD quality setting. It is an LCD and not an OLED, which some people might find disappointing, but the screen is majestic. It's got really great colors, it goes super bright. Then finally, it's got a 3000 milliamp hour battery in it, which is fairly big. It's the same size as the Galaxy S9, but it doesn't really get you through an entire day if you're using it heavily, but it does perform quite well. As far as cameras on the back go, it's got dual 16 megapixel cameras. The main camera is an f1.6 optical image stabilized lens, so it means that, you know, if you're very shaky while taking photos, it'll help stabilize it a bit. And then there's a really cool feature, which is a wide angle lens, which is also 16 megapixel. It doesn't have as big an aperture of f1.9. Oh, just on a side note, if you don't know what aperture is, it basically means how wide open the lens can go, and the wider wider it can go, the more light it lets in. But yeah, so it's got a wide angle camera, which is very useful if you're taking group shots of like a party or whatever. And I'll show you examples here side by side of the standard camera versus the wide angle camera. But honestly, I'm not going to talk too much about the camera because I can't take a good photo on a phone. I'm really bad at it. And then finally, the most important thing is it's got a headphone jack. It's a 2018 phone that has a headphone jack. And now moving on to things that you can't really read off a spec sheet, it's got really good phone call quality. So it means that, you know, if you have decent reception, you have no problem hearing the person on the other end of the line. And then when looking at Wi-Fi performance, the phone actually performs really well. I have it here next to an iPhone 7 using the same Wi-Fi connection. It's the same distance apart, and they took the tests right after each other. And as you can see, the LG did better. Now, there are also downsides to the phone. It's got the notch, which is fairly contentious. Some people don't like it. I don't mind it. It's got quite a subtle notch on it. And if you have an issue with it, it's not going to be the phone for you. Although you do get the Samsung Galaxy S9 for really good deals now as well, if you prefer not having a notch. The cameras aren't amazing. I haven't been able to take decent photos of it, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm a really bad photographer. The speakers are pretty good. It's got a weird speaker technology in it, which means that if you put it down on a table, it like reverberates through the table to have like a bigger sound. And honestly, when you're using the phone, it like vibrates in your hands. You can really feel the sound pulsating through it, which is quite nice. But it is a really tiny speaker at the base of the phone, and you can easily cover it with your finger, but that's something that a lot of phones have an issue with. And then the other issue is that it's not particularly flashy. It doesn't have an under-screen fingerprint scanner like the OnePlus 6T. It doesn't have the punch-out camera, front-facing camera that the S10 is going to have. And honestly, it's not really going to impress a date. But is a phone ever going to impress a date? Is that really a reason to spend $850 on a Samsung Galaxy S10 if you can, for $460, get a very practical phone that, as you can see from all of the specs that I've been listing, does everything that you could possibly want it to, and it does it really well. It doesn't have any glaring omissions. So the fact that it isn't the most flashy phone isn't an issue. In fact, I quite like it. I like the fact that it looks quite plain. And that kind of brings me to the whole point of this video, is the fact that for $460 you can get a phone with pretty much all of the flagship specs from 2018 in it, and honestly, that's an absolute steal in my opinion. And the reason that I wouldn't recommend waiting until the Galaxy S10 is actually available to buy just a previous generation phone is then it's very difficult to overcome the temptation. I know for me, I'm weak. Like, if there's a really sexy looking device, I'm gonna buy it even though it costs more. So I had to buy this LG G7 to save myself a bunch of money when the S10 comes out, because I'm probably gonna buy one, or would have bought one, because I was in the market for a phone. So save yourself some money and buy this phone right now. Now, you might go, yes, the S10 is going to have a Snapdragon 855 in it, which is going to be more powerful. It's going to be a faster phone. And it is going to be a faster phone, and it is going to have nicer features in it. But honestly, most of the features that you use on a day-to-day basis, this LG G7 does spectacularly well. And you can play pretty much any game on it. Here's some footage of me playing PUBG, and after a long match, it still stays cool to the touch. It's great to use. Funnily enough, the first ever match I played of PUBG Mobile was on this phone, and I actually won, which was ridiculous because I've never played it before and the controls are useless. That's actually kind of one of the reasons that I won, is that no one can hit each other. You're just running around like blankly firing into the air. It's quite a ridiculous game, but as far as I know, it's quite demanding as far as phone games go, and this phone runs it really well. And I'm not only talking about the S10 here. There are obviously lots of other manufacturers that are also going to release their 2019 flagships, and they might not all cost $850, but they're still going to cost a lot, and a lot more than $460. If you can find that deal on the LG G7, I'd recommend go for it. You can also look at the S9, which you're getting good deals for. Because the OnePlus 6T is still fairly recent, you're not getting them for less money than you normally would. They're still sitting at about MSRP. But yeah, honestly, this logic applies for any 2018 flagship phone that you can get a good deal on. I think now might not be a bad time to go that route if you want to save yourself some money. If you're the type of person that wants to be at the bleeding edge of technology, wait for the S10, spend a bunch of money on it. It's probably going to be a great phone, but yes, I've decided not to go that route. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I know I've been quite absent recently. There's been all kinds of stuff going on, but I've got more videos coming which are going to be really exciting. I'm currently sitting in South Africa waiting for my visa to come through, so I'm going to do some name and shaming because my brother's really bad at building PCs, so stick around to watch that video. And I'm also going to build a scrap heap editing machine to use while I'm in South Africa. Anyway, until the next video, thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.